Hi, Michael Brown here. I want to make a little video documentary of a 2D to 3D conversion I did recently. Bonny Lhotka sent me an image from Dan Marcolina, an artist, and the subject of this picture was Russell Brown. And Bonnie had asked me if I could do a 2D to 3D conversion and make a lenticular print that she could gift to Russell. I was happy to do this. Both Bonnie and Russell are friends. I don't know Dan, but I can tell by this visual he's an incredible artist. Anyway, I thought I'd just give a little overview regarding the project. So to begin, this is Adobe Photoshop, and this is the original piece of artwork. And I took this visual and using Immersity AI, the website, I created a depth map of this visual. And that depth map is this. And I thought it did a really good job. You can see Russell's hands are a lighter white, so they come forward from the lenticular. There's this little rocket. The intriguing thing is this background with the buildings and Adobe structure that actually made a relief of that where these structures come forward. And of course, the planets are at different depths and, he's holding a test tube. There's some various graphics. So there's a lot going on in this visual and there was a lot of potential in converting that to a 3D image. So the first thing I did, I'll just close that, was I took the graphic and divided it into a variety of layers. As I recall, I think there's about 19 layers. So if I start turning these off, you can see there's a background and there's the quilt that originally had these icons for the different Photoshop software programs. But I thought, I'd like those icons to float in 3D space. So I actually removed them from the quilt, build that background of all those colored lines, and I added the icons back in individually. I'll just turn those on. And then you can see Russell himself is missing, so we can put him in. There was a little photograph here. We have the Earth, the ringed planet, a rocket, a sign, Dan's, graphics saying he was the artist that produced it, some AR text, and a little logo. So all those elements were placed on different layers. And what I would then do is I took those elements and exported each of the layers as an individual file, and I brought those into a program called 3D Master Kit. So let's close or reduce Photoshop here. All right. So this is a 3D Master Kit. It's a PC program. I'm running it on my Mac under emulation. But if you look on the right side here, you can see here are all our different layers. And then there's a little eyeball where you can turn on individual layers on or off. So I'll turn off the ring planet in the upper left. That disappears. And I'll turn it back on. Now for each of these layers, I can have depth maps. And that's actually what I did. For the icons of the software programs, I actually made different grayscale depth maps to place those at different layers, differing amounts forward and back. And then I had a depth map basically for all the individual components. And those were loaded in here. So you can see, for example, this Lightroom icon, it has this level of gray as its depth map. The Adobe After Effects has this level of gray as its depth map. If you look at, the rocket, I'm using the generic depth map. So sometimes I would use a depth map more than once, and sometimes I would make individual depth maps for the different layers. So when I have all the layers set up with all their appropriate depth maps, I can then invoke a command in 3D Master Kit to generate frames. And this is what you see along the top here. I actually created 96 frames, and I interlaced all 96 of those into a file for the finished lenticular. And the finished lenticular actually measured 16 by 16 inches, and it was made using a 40 LPI MicroLens. If I minimize this, I believe I have right here a simulation of that. So I'll hit the play button. See if I can move this out of the way. So here, this is the visual simulation. Those are the 96 layers, and you can see how the icons move in a different manner relative to the background. So it gives you a little simulation of what that piece would look like. Now, the other way of simulating lenticulars are to make stereo pairs, and I believe I did that here. Let's see. Yes, right here. So bring Photoshop back up. So in this case, the top two images are meant if you can do parallel viewing or if you have a stereoscope to view, and the bottom two are if you can cross your eyes to view. But the gist of it is if you take your left-right pairs and fuse them, you can actually get a 3D simulation. Now, some people are not good at free viewing, and so this is an anaglyph preview. So if you have the classic pair of 3D glasses and put those on, you can see this with great relief. You can see how the hands come off the surface, the planets and the quilt recede behind the surface. Russell has that whole three-dimensional quality. So it's not really a series of flat layers. There's a lot of variation in the depth of this piece. So anyway, that's the background of this 2D to 3D lenticular conversion. I hope you enjoyed it.